Good evening and welcome to IDG Chit Chat Live for the week of July 27th, 2015. On this episode, we will be talking about last Sunday's episode of Who Do You Think You Are with actor Ginnifer Goodwin. Hope everyone is ready. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Chit Chat Live. I'm Shannon Combs-Bennett, Creative Director with the In-Depth Genealogist. Joining me this evening are Jennifer Alford, Publisher, Terry O'Connell, Executive Director, and our special guests, Tina Sansone, APG Board Member and host of A Savory Spotlight on LA Talk Radio, as well as Thea Walden-Baker of Full House Genealogy. Welcome, ladies. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Very nice to have you here. We always love having guests. It's more fun than just talking to the two of them. I love Terry and Jen, but it's nice to have new people every so often.
Definitely.
So I don't know if either of you would like to take a second to let the audience know a little bit about who you are. Thea, would you like to go first?
Let me pass that over to
Okay.
Tina, since she was the first invited guest.
Sure. Tina, can you give us a little bit about who you are, where you're at, or anything that is you think people would like to know about you?
Well, I'm with the APG board and started out with as president of the virtual chapter of Second Life. And then I remember talking to Dear Myrtle about 4 or 5 years ago, didn't know anything about Second Life. And she said, well, here, why don't you check us out? Next thing I know, I'm president, so be careful what you join. And then my friend Sherry McNeil Savory does the radio show, Savory Spotlight, and she invited me to be her co-host. So we meet every Tuesday on latalkradio.com, savory.php, and we talk about just about everything but politics and religion. We always talk about genealogy and DNA. And we do Research DNA Writers is our website, researchfordnawriters.com, and just recently changed over to real estate a little bit, and so I take my hats off to all of you that work plus do genealogy, because it's my first time and it's hard. But I enjoy doing research, and when Who Do You Think You Are called, I mean, it didn't matter how busy I was going to do it because I just enjoy, the show, enjoy doing it. I've done it once before, and they were so nice that I enjoyed doing the Ginnifer Goodwin section.
Oh, fantastic. All right, Thea, your turn.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Tina, for that background information. Shannon, I have been a researcher for, come this fall, 20 years, and I did create my first family tree in 1972, and it was a lovely mess. I was sort of like what Ginnifer Goodwin told me that some 13 years ago she went to Salt Lake City expecting that she could pull a book off the shelf that would tell her about her family information, and she discovered that was not the case. Similarly, that was not the case for me. I had a great deal to learn, and I'm still learning, and try to access as many learning possibilities as I can as I go. I admire Tina for all of her great accomplishments, and I appreciate your interest in me. I have also done quite a bit of research that others have utilized over the years. I have contributed 2 books that have been published. I have also published 2 compiled genealogies of my own, and I'm proud of those. I have recently been nominated to the board of the Arkansas Genealogical Society, and that is a tremendous honor because it is a tremendous resource for persons searching in Arkansas. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for being here. Wow, that's a lot. That's really good.
I'm excited to be here because Arkansas is like next door to Tennessee, and it's great to know somebody that's right there, close enough. We could probably go to lunch one day if we really wanted to. It's not too far.
Thank you.
I'm glad that I now know someone in Arkansas who I can bug and have.
There you go.
Oh, poor little old me out here in Virginia.
I might hit you up for Virginia. I've got some Virginia research.
Yeah. Well, you know where I am, and you know how to get a hold of me.
Yeah, you got all this free time.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So, everybody obviously watched the episode last Sunday evening on TLC with Ginnifer Goodwin, and I have to say, I thought it was a really, really good episode. I think it's one of the better ones, and I noticed that a lot of people have said that online that they really enjoyed this episode for a variety of different reasons. Um, Terry, Jen, do either of you have any comments about it to get us started tonight?
I definitely agree. I've seen a lot of comments about this was the best episode they've done yet. I don't know if it was the best, but it is definitely up there for me. I have to say that I loved the genuine care, concern, and emotions that Ginnifer, you just saw them with every piece of information that she received. It just, you could tell it, everything. It was just breaking her heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about you, Jen?
I just loved her reactions, like when she saw the photograph and, you know, just how emotional she was. And I could just totally relate to her because, you know, we've all come across those pictures of, you know, 3 times great grandparents, and it's just such an amazing thing that you can even find such a thing. And so it was great to see, you know, just how appreciative she was, and also, you know, how sensitive she was to what those people's lives must have been like.
Right. Now, Thea, you were the first segment on there. You kind of kicked off the episode. That was awfully a wonderful experience, I'm sure. Did you do a lot of digging in your local area to get that information, or?
Yes, Shannon, I did. I was the local researcher, and much of what I found was actually even presented by others throughout the segments. The story, the historic story behind her ancestry is compelling for sure because it coincides so greatly with the history of this state and this country. There were other findings in her family that are equally compelling and which in their own right would make a wonderful episode, and certainly I and many others would hope to have some of those other stories told. The research that I did, I kind of branched out in just a moment, and I guess that you can say that those moments in which you step forward to make a request for a new look at something can be a game changer. Because Ginnifer has such a compelling story in her family history, the initial research focused more on a great-great-grandmother. That information was not covered, but it certainly fits in with the times and would certainly be a heartbreaker in and of itself. I was, at the moment that I was doing the research one day, in a wheelchair myself from a broken ankle.
Oh, wow.
And I had an assistant who was helping me because I couldn't possibly wheel through narrow aisles and pull books down by myself. And I looked across a few feet and I spoke to my helper and said, "Would you pull that criminal index for me?" It was not what I had been literally authorized to do, so therefore I would not have charged those few minutes to the show if I'd found nothing. But the fact is I did find something, and I found a lot. And as I say, the rest is history. And thank you for asking about that.
Oh, you're welcome. It's almost like it was serendipity, like the ancestors were telling you where to look.
Sometimes it feels that way, research does, that they want to be discovered and they want their stories told. I don't think any of us can ever answer that in this lifetime, but again, I don't know why I said that, except that a thoroughly exhaustive search is, of course, the backbone of of good genealogy.
Right. No stone unturned. When we can. When we can.
Right.
Like I said, unfortunately, I live in Virginia, and when too many times I run into a burned record county, it's like, oh.
Probably more than one too many times.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Tina, where did your research come in into this episode?
A lot of what I did actually did not make it to the show. Some of it kind of contributed to make you look further. Some of the stuff that I found was criminal activity with her third husband in the 1920s. I guess they felt like it wasn't direct. I think one reason this show, to me, might have been so accepted and so many people like it is because sometimes when you try to cover 4 or 5 generations, you're so thin you can't reach everything. And with this one, they just kind of focused on this one or two lines, and you could get more things in and learn more about them. But I went to the courthouse down in Shelby County, which was interesting. A bunch of people were in line. My husband's like, "Are you going to be okay?" I said, "Yeah." And then newspapers, looked in the newspapers, and just it would have been helpful had I known if I'd seen the show and then was asked to do what I'm doing. But unfortunately, they just give you one little section to do, and then you have to do one section. You don't get the family, the descendants, or the ancestors. You just deal with that one section. But you just do the best you can.
And it's all about, number one, unfortunately it's only an hour show, and so with commercials it's like 42 or 43 minutes of filming, and it's a shame that we can't have a 6-hour program for everybody. But I hope that she at least walked away with the information, which I'm sure was provided to her, whatever you all found.
Yes.
Yeah. What I thought was interesting, and a lot of people, and since this is the first time the two of you have met us, Terry and Jen know this, but I watch this show with my children a lot of the time because they enjoy family history and enjoy Who Do You Think You Are, and mine pointed out the same thing as Ginnifer did on the show when her second great grandfather. Yes, was arrested, or grandfather, sorry, was arrested for bootlegging. My oldest said, but that wasn't prohibition. And so that was a nice little segue into discussing you still have to pay taxes.
Historical lesson there.
Yes.
It's good that he knew that, though. I wasn't sure what the years were, so that's pretty impressive.
I definitely feel that for the kids. You hear about what's going on with the grandparent and with Nellie and all that, but you have to remember there's 3 little kids involved with this. There's James, there's Pearl, there's John, and you think what's going through their heads. Who's taking care of them and who's doing this and that in this time period. So there's a lot more questions than answers sometimes.
Which, I think was important when, at the end, they touched on morphine addiction among Southern women. And, I think that's a part of history that a lot of people may be unaware of. I mean, you think about, current event drug abuse or, late 20th century, but you don't necessarily, a lot of people, I think, consider, cocaine and morphine were not regulated like they are today. And, it is a very addictive drug. And yes, they used it in almost everything as a cure-all. So, of course, if you think about it, there would be people, becoming addicted. And looking through those clinical records at the end of the show, I thought was illuminating. Terry, Jen, did you have any comments on that?
I definitely think
no. No, but I did find it interesting that the women, there was a higher proportion of women who were morphine users, and I can't help but wonder if part of that is because, since we're all women here, it seems like most doctors don't know how to treat women, and they do everything for, well, we know what's going on with men, so let's give the women morphine to calm them down.
It made me wonder if Pearl was given the morphine for her asthma from a doctor, or was it something the family just decided to treat? I wondered more about that. I don't know the answer, but I was curious about why both mother and daughter seemed to be on the same drug.
Terry, did you have a comment? You started to speak, so.
You know, it's funny when you said that about really not knowing about the whole morphine thing and the cocaine thing. When I was in my 20s, I went to the ENT because I have some major allergy issues. And we had a long discussion about how cocaine and morphine were the normal drug of choice. I didn't really know about the whole, like, it was a huge addiction. The doctor did tell me, though, that that was the reason that, you know, they started making the laws to, you know, protect
Right.
people from that. So,
Interesting.
Now,
yeah.
I went out and looked up what the Harrison Narcotics Act was, and you can actually find out a lot about it online. There's several books written about it. It's you know, one of those major, you know, first step acts or laws that, for the United States, that went to protecting, you know, distributors, especially illegal ones. And so I thought it would be good for the people who saw the show and may not have been clear on what it is. I got this little excerpt from, oh, and of course I didn't write down where I got it from. I have to go out and look it up real quick before we stop.
So much for citations, right?
I know. I have the website, so I can go and put the website in real quick when I'm done and tell you exactly what website I got it from. But it says, an act to provide for the registration of, with collectors of internal revenue, so there's the tax people again, right? And to impose a special tax on all persons who produce, import, manufacture, compound, deal in, dispense, sell, distribute, or give away opium or coca leaves, their salts, derivatives, or preparations, and for all other purposes. And then it says the courts interpreted this to mean that physicians could prescribe narcotics to patients in the course of normal treatment, but not for the treatment of their addiction. So let me go out, while you all discuss that, I'm going to go out and find out where I got this from.
Well, you know, it's easy. I had a root canal, and they gave me the hydrocodone #3s. It's got, I guess, it's got codeine in it, and I got addicted to it. I was like 18 or 19, and it was hard. I got off of it. It was like 6 months I was on it because of an infection, and you really do get to where you want to have that feeling because you're just so used to it. So
Okay.
it's easy. It's easy.
I got this from the Council of on Foreign Relations website. But all it says is cfr.org, so I couldn't figure out what that meant from my notes. But yeah, the Council of Foreign Relations had that explanation. And with the codone, I mean, that is a cocaine, it's an opiate. This is where I tell everybody that I can't take those things because I have a hypersensitivity to opiates. And even the ones they give you that are supposed to be for people who can't take them make me hallucinate. So I refuse to take anything. So whenever I see stories like this, I always think to myself, wow, how can you live like that? Because I just can't fathom it.
How did they function day to day, you know?
I mean, I'm a 12-hour drooling mess, so I don't know how they would function. Oh, it's just, yeah. But, you know, there's actually a book, if people want to learn more about the Shreveport clinic that she and her daughter were treated at. It's called Morphine Maintenance, the Shreveport Clinic, 1919 to 1923, and it's by Dan Waldorf, Martin Orlick, and Craig Reinerman. And it talks about the clinic and the morphine addiction in the South.
Wow.
Thank you, Shannon. I appreciate that mention of the book because I think that this thread of conversation is very important in terms not only of women's health, but what was happening in the nation at the time. If I may speak to the historicity of the moment,
yes,
the
please.
Harrison Narcotics Act of 1914 also addressed an issue that returning veterans from the Spanish-American War that largely took place in the Philippines were coming home with addictions themselves where they had been introduced to opiates. There was, in fact, a direct railroad line from New Orleans to Shreveport, Louisiana. I can speak with some authority on that simply because my husband had some ancestors who worked for the railroad and went from New Orleans to Shreveport. There would have been a direct conduit from the seaport of New Orleans to Shreveport for opiates. Now, yes, granted, they were largely available over the counter and at that time by prescription, but those avenues may not have fully satisfied the wants and needs of the persons who were addicted at the time. The Harrison Narcotics Act was a profound move to not only try to quell the import and, what would you say, distribution of narcotics, but also to address the issue that had been raised. Some number of years ago, there was a movie about Wyatt Earp in which it was addressed that his first wife was a patent medicine narcotics addict. So we have evidence that this was a very common occurrence, and it became a social issue as well.
What I was reminded of when you were talking about that, and I was thinking after the show is, it's going to date me, but you all remember, of course, Little House on the Prairie, the TV show, right?
Yes.
Do you all remember that there was an episode with the Charles's adopted son, and he was stealing morphine from the doctor's office?
I remember that.
They did an entire episode on morphine addiction in the Old West frontier on Little House on the Prairie.
A lot of people sold elixir. I have an ancestor bumpus that's got newspaper articles, little ad prints where he was selling the elixir. I don't know what was in it, but it was supposed to cure everything. So you've had that going on too.
Yes.
Right.
Peddlers of patent medicine often had a cure-all, and it was, in the 60s, it became known through the, what would you say, the Rolling Stone song Mother's Little Helpers, about drugs. Yeah. But, there has been an ongoing issue with these sorts of things with regards to women's health in particular. And as the show made very clear from statistics that women in the South were highly representative of that demographic of persons who were addicted to these patent medicine drugs and prescriptions. So yes, of course, there had to be some kind of help for these women, even though, as I understand it, the clinic closed less than a year after Nellie sought treatment there.
I think it goes back to what Terry had suggested. I wonder why, why. I wonder. I think I'm gonna have to go get this book and see if maybe it says something about it. But because you would think, presenting, there are addictive personalities out there, both men and women who fall victim to alcohol and substance abuse. But part of me wonders if they were women were prescribed these medicines more often, or is it like it was suggested earlier? Is it, we're going to give it to you basically for a hysterical type condition and hope it goes away? And I don't know. But now I'm all fascinated. My mother's a doctor, so I feel a phone call coming on.
Because when you had babies,
yes, definitely.
What were you saying, Tina?
Well, when women had babies back then, they'd put them to sleep. My mom, she has 8 kids, and all of us but the last 3, she slept through the delivery. They would put the women to sleep, and they'd wake up and it'd be over. So I think they tended to medicate a lot of things that we don't do so much now back then. And I mean, I don't know what they gave them after they had the babies. Maybe they gave them something for pain, but I know that there was a different outlook of how they treated people back then than how they do now.
Oh, this is when you all get to hate me because I slept through mine too.
Yeah,
But there were circumstances.
I had one of mine born at home.
Oh, wow.
Across the grave.
My mom.
As you sit there and you listen to the story, I kind of wonder, she started the medicine because of the syphilis, but she had, it seemed like such a hard adult life that, did it turn to be an escape for some point too before she said, okay, I really got to clean up. I got to.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't have a record that could possibly answer those questions. We can only conjecture at this point what her impetus was to try to get clean. And but we can appreciate her honesty in saying with her intake record that she had been addicted for 11 years.
Yeah.
Heartbreakingly, that puts her and her son, John Barton Goodwin, who is Ginnifer's grandfather, at a very, what would you say, a tender point in his life. I think we can all feel for the child who is involved in this.
Right.
Absolutely. It makes you wonder, like they said on the show, had that clinic not closed at that time and she could have stayed there, what would have happened to her and the children's life later?
Absolutely.
I agree. Yeah.
Jen, do you have anything that was sticking out to you that you wanted to make sure that we talk about tonight? You're awfully quiet over there.
It's been.
These are some big issues in lives at that time and as well as the present time.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't realize she lived in Memphis. She grew up in Memphis and went to the schools here and everything. I had no idea until I started researching her, her life. And I don't watch a whole lot of TV, so the Big Love, I think I watched her in that. But there's to say the more local stuff I hadn't really kept up with, and so it was kind of exciting to find all the history that she has here in where I live.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a pretty good show. It was. And I like to see how down to earth she was. And I know we touched, that's very nice whenever you see somebody who's really down to earth. And of course, I was admiring her wardrobe because, that's the way I dress. So.
She's supposed to look snazzed up like a celebrity.
Yeah.
Regular Joe,
She is indeed a very real, down-to-earth person, and she is genuinely interested in her family history. In fact, she confided with me that if she had a different life choice to make, it would be as an archivist in some kind of library, archive somewhere, that she had actually worked as a work-study student in the library when she was at Boston University. Wow. So, in a sense, she very much is one of us who is deeply interested in her very interesting family history, and I think we'll all agree on that. What a wonderful episode it was. And she is proud of her history, even with all the heartbreak that attends to it.
One of the things I like is when she said "holy mackerel," because I'm always saying "wow." It just kind of like "holy mackerel."
I know. Well, there were many shocks along the way, but she is one who can truly stand up to the truth in every situation.
Well, I'm just going to say that there is always life after acting, and eventually she'll find her way back to home to researching and maybe finding a nice library somewhere.
I think she's a very grounded individual, and that she knows where she's going and what she's going to do, and like others, she may have a second life somewhere down the road.
What were you going to say, Tina?
She just had a baby. I don't know if sometimes when you have children, it makes you start thinking about family a little more and, those kinds of things. And so that might have a play in it that she just had that baby a year ago and, her legacy to him, her family history.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
We definitely talked about that at the beginning.
Yep. Well, our time is almost up. So, is there anything that you ladies think that we haven't touched on yet from the episode, or things that you think people should know about? Anyone have a thought?
Well, I think there needs to be part 1 and part 2 and maybe even part 3. She has a fascinating family history, many things of which could not be crammed into that 40-plus minute segment. And it could even be a mini-series, the way I look at it, and from what I know from doing research. And I certainly would hope to see more of Ginnifer Goodwin and her family on the screen.
What
This
about you,
also
Tina?
for those who are interested in where they searched for her family, because people were asking about, okay, so what happened, in between those years, to go out and read the Ancestry.com blog, because they did talk about, we looked for her here, couldn't find her, we looked for John Barton here, we couldn't find him in these years. So it really kind of opened up some of the stuff that most people want to know but haven't read about.
Okay.
One of the things I wanted to say is sometimes when we're doing this, people don't know what records. I used Shelby County Archives. I used the Tennessee, Archives, Ancestry, Family Search, the Genealogy Bank, and the local newspapers, Memphis Press-Seminar, the Memphis Commercial Appeal. I went down to the Shelby County Courthouse, and actually they were really nice because they were telling me other places to go to that didn't have anything, but they did guide me in some directions that might have something. There was some other things that they thought might be in this story. Like everybody, they hear stories and we didn't know if it was true or not till we document it, and it hit dead ends, and I won't bring them up since it was dead ends, but did research on that. But it's just nice to know that the records we use in our own ancestry, you can use to do the same things for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Jen? Do you have any last thoughts?
No.
No.
There have to be some last thoughts.
I think maybe we've taken them all from her.
There's nothing left in here.
Oh.
I hope when Ginnifer came to Arkansas and Memphis that we didn't have the 110 degrees weather that we have now.
Well, she was wearing a sweater,
quite.
so I don't think so.
What are you going to say,
When
Thea?
we filmed at the Lyon College library, it was very cold in there. And I felt sorry for her doing the outdoors bit and then coming indoors at that time.
Did she bring her baby with her when she came?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Did she bring her baby when she came to town? Did she have her child with her?
I did not see the baby, but Josh Dallas, her husband, was with her.
Hmm.
He's
That would have been
good-looking.
Yes.
They are a family unit. They
That's
are.
awesome.
They represent some of the best of relationships.
That is
That's
fantastic.
wonderful.
That's cool.
Well, on that note, it looks like our time is up this evening. Thank you again, Thea and Tina, for joining us. We really appreciated having you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome. Anytime you want to come back, you just let us know.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Next week's show will cover J.K. Rowling's episode of Who Do You Think You Are? And I have to let you know, I know my youngest has been looking forward to this one for weeks. Finally, someone he thinks he knows, not some strange actor he doesn't have a clue about. So remember that we would love to hear from you. Drop us a line in the comments below, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, or just send us an email at editor@theindeftgenealogist.com. And on that note, we hope you have a great evening and good luck hunting your ancestors. Good night.
Bye.